movements of our hands and our fingers, and they're supported by our larger muscles of the shoulders and trunk. So what does this look like? So using hands during play, holding a pencil, feeding yourself, scribbling, dressing, turning pages in a book, all of those we need our fine motor skills for. When you're thinking of scribbling or turning pages in a book, right, you have to hold something or you have to pinch something and move it. Same with during play, you're always grasping items, you're moving them around, you're manipulating them in different ways. So kind of what is our progression of fine motor and what are some prerequisites that we might need to have functional fine motor skills? So we kind of start off newborn within a few months of like a reflexive grasp. So this might be, sorry, just admitting someone. So this might be more of like the palmar grasp. So if you think about when a baby, you put something in their fingers, right, they automatically will go and grasp it and hold it. That's what we call that palmar grasp reflex, and that's one of the first grasps that develop. This kind of integrates within the first few months of life, 4 to 6-ish. If it doesn't become integrated, then that can have more difficulties for when they're in the future. But we can do a lot of stuff to promote those functional fine motor skills through a bunch of activities that we're going to go through today. So after that, you kind of move into a reaching grasp. So that is what it sounds like, right? Reaching out to get something. And then you go to a raking grasp between like 6 and 8 months. So raking is kind of like when your hand is a rake, for lack of a better word, but quite literally, if you can see my camera as well, your fingers act as like the prongs of a rake, and they scoop it and they bring it towards their palm. That is what kids use before they can get more refined and developed grasps. And then we move into like a pincer grasp. We have 2 different kinds of pincer grasp. We have our inferior and then our refined pincer. So your inferior pincer, you might see them using the pads of their fingers, and then it develops to your refined pincer, which is the tips of your fingers. After that, tool use starts becoming more present. So think of like using a fork or a spoon, or think of like your writing utensils, crayons, any of that. Those start to become more progressive as ages develop as well. So then we also have like things that are what we might call prerequisites, or things that might really help to control and stabilize our fine motor skills in the future. So shoulder stability, head and neck control, core strength, all of that is needed to kind of promote functional and age-appropriate fine motor skills. So when you think of shoulder stability, why is that important? If you think about how you're writing or how you are reaching for an item, right, you need all of that shoulder movement. Same with head and neck control. When you think of how you have to be kind of stabilized to perform any of those skills that you do every day, right? Putting on your pants, zipping up your jacket, all of that is contributed as well. A lot of our motor control kind of starts what we call proximal to distal. So it starts closer to the body with big motor movements. So your arms and your shoulders, and then it goes towards your fingertips. And that's why like pincer grasps and tool uses are more of like the later progressed ones, because you start at the big ones and you go to more of the small ones. So how can we support development at home, and what can you guys do at home to support your kiddos' development? These are a bunch of different things that I'm going to go into individually of how you can support development at home. So tummy time, if your kiddo's an infant still, those are so important for those early skills. Incorporating them into everyday routines, mealtime, play, a bunch of different sensory experiences, and using both hands together is really beneficial to support those skills in later development as well. So the first thing we're going to go into is more tummy time. So tummy time is one of the first and most important ways that babies build strength and coordination. So it not only influences and supports their head control, shoulder strength, core strength, and postural control, but also influences their hand development and visual motor skills. So tummy time really builds that shoulder stability. When a baby goes and pushes up onto your hands or to your forearms, you're not just strengthening their shoulders, their upper back, and their chest muscles, but you're also providing them with a stable base. So when you're in tummy time and they move to their hands, most of the time their hands will automatically open, and it will encourage that, and they'll have to weight bear. So weight bearing means like putting the pressure onto their hands. This will begin shifting weight from one arm to the next, and it prepares them for reaching, for grasping, and transferring toys between hands and using those two hands together. It can also help to develop bilateral coordination. So bilateral coordination is like the ability to use both sides of the body together in a controlled, organized, and alternating manner. So bilateral coordination, you can think, is when you are cutting paper, right? So you're holding the paper with one hand and then your scissors are using the other hand. So you need to use both hands together to create or to achieve one goal. In tummy time, babies use bilateral coordination, or they develop it by learning to stabilize with one arm and then reach for a toy with another arm. So when you are doing tummy time, it's important to not just have them in that position, but put things around them, right? Like things that are going to encourage them to keep going. So maybe a toy just a little bit in their reach, but that they have to go and get it, right? Bring something to them. Later, bilateral coordination is helpful for holding a bottle, bringing toys to midline, and then later skills, like I said, the cutting, the dressing, writing, all of that. So also, tummy time can support visual motor skills. So your visual motor is kind of how the brain interprets and responds to visual information, and it guides it through those like coordinated body movements. So it helps tracking toys and kind of doing the coordinating of eyes and hands when you're reaching for items. So when they are up in their tummy time and they're reaching for that item, our visual motor skills helps our fine motor by being able to tell it like, oh, that is where the item is. Let me go pick it up from there. So next is how fine motor skills can be developed in everyday routines. So of course, what you're doing every day, you have natural things that are going to do it, but there's always a little bit more we can kind of do to facilitate it. So think mealtime, bath time, diaper changes, just play in general, or getting dressed. So during bath time, reaching towards floating toys, splashing around with open hands, that brings your hands to midline. All of that is to help build that shoulder stability. When they're splashing around in the water, they're moving their whole arm movement, right? They're moving their whole, their whole arm. So it's building that shoulder strength and shoulder stability. It's encouraging that open hand posture that we were talking about in tummy time. It encourages that here. And it kind of develops that cause and effect understanding, which is great for fine motor, right? Of like, oh, if my hand is out and then splash water like this, but also great for future use of like play and cognitive development. Grasping washcloths to help bathe themselves, even if they're really little, or just playing with it, right? That can help to strengthen their grasp and promote that bilateral coordination. Putting it between hands, pulling it towards their face, their mouth, their other body parts, that all helps with that development as well. And then maybe when they get towards like toddlerhood, more of like squeezing and pouring items, you can encourage that, like filling up a cup and dumping it out, squeezing water out of a soft, squeezy, water absorbent toy, and then pouring between containers. That can really help build those intrinsic hand muscles, right? The small ones in here. It helps with graded control, which is kind of like how much pressure or how much force they're using to pour water out or to scoop it. And then it also improves the bilateral coordination. And then we have diaper changes. So this is for both, some of the skills are for when you're infants, and some it goes into toddlerhood as well. So holding a toy during diaper changes around midline, that encourages grasping, transferring toys between hands, bringing the toys to their mouth. That helps to strengthen that grasp, promote like some exploration of what is this item, how do I use it, what can I do with it, and then also builds again that coordination of using both sides of the body together. You can also have them help with diaper changes, especially if they're in older toddlers, and help with the clothing management and just the diaper management, right? So helping undress themselves, right? Pull down their pants, that encourages hand strength, builds their grasp. And then with diapers too, the little tabs, right? That can help with pincer grasp, finger isolation, all little movements that is encouraging their independence for sure, but it's also building those fine motor skills. And then we have dressing. So dressing, you have a lot of different fine motor stuff you have to do, right? If we're thinking about our individual day, we have zippers. You have to pinch and squeeze your zipper to zipper it up and down. Your buttons on your pants, all of that. Encourage them to help, right? Pull off and on their clothes. Socks are a good one because they have to pinch and squeeze and pull. Pants, they all help strengthen grasp, build that bilateral coordination skills, improve their motor planning. And all of these are like easily able to help kind of just go within your routine. It's not anything extra. It's just promoting a little bit more independence in all of these.